let's get into the big one. Obligatory. I get it. If you don't believe it is one YouTuber and one YouTuber saying it's from his source, regardless of how much stock he puts in that source, it's a lot, but it's making news. And if just one other person in the know comes forward, that would be great. So we saw this I don't know who's S Zorm is or whatever, but she deserves an apology. Started trending for whatever reason, and everyone started responding to it. All the usuals. Far more than this, by the way. It really did get its reach. That all started because of this. Before we even get to what came after this, let's just start with this one. Adam Driver says that he and Steven Soderbergh, Niat, you have Steven Soderbergh. What would a Star Wars movie look like from him?
It would be weird.
Would it? It's not who I would have thought. Certainly.
I wouldn't recommend him to helm a Star Wars project. He just did the Presence at the start of this year, which is this really weird ghost story told from the perspective of the ghost. He's a little bit out there in his filmmaking style. Yeah, they probably shot him down for good reason, even if the script was good.
What? And to that end, we're getting more information on that. So apparently Rebecca Blunt was the screenwriter. Scott Z. Burns was paid more than any other screenwriter in Lucasfilm history to complete the script. And that's it was fully completed. So the film had a final script, but like, you know how Gunn is on his 4th draft of Superman Tomorrow? This shit was actually done. The budget was ready to start filming before they presented it to Disney. And that's when it got rejected.
Kathleen Kennedy and what's her name approved it. So like,
yes. Right. Okay. So just keep this that clearly, even if Kathleen, the head of Lucasfilm, says, I have a Star Wars, Bob can override it and say, no.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, Bob.
I'll fuck you. Go fuck yourself. So they submitted it. It says, this is from the actual source of that. He goes, after the submission, the project stalled at the executive level. Sources say that Bergman took an unusually long time to read the script. And when he and Iger finally responded, their primary concern was narrative continuity, specifically uncertainty about how Ben Solo could be alive following the events of Rise of Skywalker.
Come on.
This is the part. Internally, that reaction surprised Lucasfilm leadership, i.e. Kathy and Dave, who reportedly felt the story's logic was clear and creatively sound. Several people close to the production interpreted the decision as politically motivated, coinciding with Iger's efforts to position Bergman as his successor at Disney. Which that is going to be a succession level fight whenever he does retire. Dana Waldron, whatever. So Steven Soderbergh says, The Hunt for Ben Solo was the first time Lucasfilm had a finished script ready for greenlight rejected by Disney. In the aftermath, he asked Kathy Kennedy if Lucasfilm had ever turned in a finished movie script for greenlight to Disney and had it rejected. She said no. This was the first.
First time for everything and good? Like,
between a new trilogy with Rey and a trilogy with fucking Ben Solo, I would have taken a Ben Solo trilogy all fucking day long.
Yes.
Yeah,
Go.
I call bullshit on there being concerns about continuity and how Ben Solo would have survived, because that Rise of Skywalker, somehow Palpatine returned. Like, come on.
Let's not pretend that narrative that's an issue that they would have. Also, you easily could have just said, he just passed out. He was in a forced coma. He was in forced hibernation. He wasn't actually dead. You know. Yeah. Okay. Here, right here. I didn't see this, but someone paid to have a plane fucking drag a banner saying save the hunt for Ben Solo. Poor guy. I know. He had the mustache. Andy, for Halloween, you could definitely do some Kylo. Crazy.
You know.
The dad pants.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll wear them like up to my right below the nipple. Yeah.
Yes.
Not for nothing, we also almost got David Fincher. Apparently, he pitched a Star Wars film and he wanted Final Cut, and Lucasfilm said no. So at least with that, it's Lucasfilm. David Fincher.
That could have been interesting, though.
Yes.
Yeah?
No, it
yes.
wouldn't have. No, God, Gooch said the same thing. No, guys, like David Fincher's good director. Like we all love him. Nothing that comes out of Disney Lucasfilm, aside from maybe a video game now and again, has been interesting. So, no,
yes,
it
because
wouldn't
the
have been.
Directors haven't had a final cut. What I'm saying is
Yes.
if Fincher had final cut, who'd have full
Yes.
creative control, it would have been good.
Thank you,
It
Nia.
still would have been in the Disney Star Wars timeline, which hasn't been good.
Jeff Snyder weighed in on this. He said, back to the hunt for Ben Solo. When Jeff Snyder reached out to his sources about the timing of Driver's comments and whether they might be setting the stage for his return, the insider added, I was assured that there are no plans for him to return to the Star Wars franchise, especially with Kennedy expected to step down from her post early next year, which My Time to Shine Hello also says Kathy Kennedy's Lucasfilm successor is expected to be announced in early 2026. Is she gone or is she queer? Kathleen Kennedy's employment status is queer. Thank you, Az. Sorry, I owe 30 cents. She's never leaving. She's never leaving. You think she's leaving yet?
I'm not sure. I mean, she's been able to hang on for longer than she should have. Who knows? Disney's a bit of a mess at the moment. We'll see.
So here's the thing I want everyone to understand. Even if what we're about to talk about is 100% true, and Bob Iger is responsible for most of the main issues that people have with Star Wars, i.e. the destruction of legacy characters and the Skywalkers, blah, blah, blah. Kathy is still horrible at running it, chose horrible creatives. She's backed horrible shows afterwards, and she's a raging feminist, and so is Dave.
She's also the one that said she wanted the Wookiee Jedis, unless I'm incorrect. Like, that was her thing, and George said, no, thank you, never, ever. So...
yeah, I mean, Lobaka was already a thing in the expanded universe, but because we won't talk about that
on screen, you know.
All right. So this all finally, I was waiting for someone to do a write-up of it. Josh from Den of Nerds. Know him, like him, hate him. I don't think he's a Mike Zero. He's not just straight fucking make shit up. I heard someone say that about him. But he basically, after this all happened, he went to his source, and he, people get sources, whatever. He went to the source that he says is like his most important source that was right before about Acolyte shit and whatever. And if it was any other source, he wouldn't trust it. But his source basically says that, yes, over there at Lucasfilm, Bob Iger is actually the one that is responsible for most of the things. Now, Katie, Andy, what do you think about this? I'm sure we've all heard this before and talked about it. Jesus Christ. What do you think of it all? A black woman is speaking. I'm sorry, everyone. Katie?
No, I don't know. It kind of just feels convenient. I understand a lot of people want to like shift blame. Regardless, Star Wars sucks.
Yes.
And thinking that she holds no blame is crazy town. Like, to believe that somehow it's just all Bob Iger, I don't believe in the slightest. Could he have stopped some projects from going through? Sure.
Yeah. You can dislike both of them, and the "I was just following orders" defense has not usually worked out so hot.
And to be fair, Josh has never said that. He's always said he apologizes for going hard on her on some of the shit that was Bob, but that also she's fully responsible for a bunch of horrible choices and should not be.
He says they can both be to blame. It's just maybe Bob got off a little light,
That all I want is to shift base of fire a little bit over for a little bit. And I want to keep targeted snipers maintaining, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's all bad. ABF for 199.69. Doom Schlong told me KK is cooked and she's leaving this week. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to bring up. When you say shit like this, like I have an exclusive and here's something new, if that does not come to fruition or somehow be backed up, you run the risk of turning into a doomcock who is now just the butt of every joke about Kathy. So that 10 years from now, when she does retire, he can go, see, I told you. Right. But that's my argument of why I'm kind of believing it, because Josh isn't stupid. And he knows that if this is in any way refuted or not backed up, that's it. You're done, son. You will have no credibility and
Well, I think it's a little bit different in that for the last months or so, maybe on your show, on your show for a while, there have been internal rumblings at Disney that have actually been confirmed about the whole, is she staying, is she going, people want her gone, and like people as in fans want her gone. Disney's actually acknowledged that stuff. So like there's been official statements from Disney that her position will at some point have to change. So now you're kind of right no matter what you say, as long as it happens within, let's say, a 12-month period.
The other thing is, I just don't think Josh woke up one day and was, you know what I'm going to do? Make up a fucking source that's going to say that Bob Iger is actually responsible for these very specific things. So this is what he said, because he had a couple of videos and I watched them at 2-point speed to get through it. But the long and short of it is, according to his source, Bob Iger doesn't like George Lucas. Bob Iger doesn't like the prequels. Bob Iger, by virtue of that, does not like the Clone Wars because they glorified and made better the prequels. So he wanted it canceled. Bob didn't want to do Lucas's script treatments. And so that was the first big thing that got messed up. Kathy apparently had to fight to get Clone Wars season 7. That's not because she's a fucking hero. That's because she switched to blowing fucking Dave, and that's his baby, right? So this would be the first big Lucasfilm wants to do something. He fucking doesn't want it to have, he being Bob Iger. We were supposed to get, Leon, you turned me on to this, and I think actually you gave me Lockdown and in theory told me about Sons of Dathomir. But both of those essentially were supposed to be getting animated adaptations that Dave had the intention to do. Bob said no to that. Bob got rid
I
of
never knew there was a
in-
potential for a Lockdown animation.
Yeah, Bob got rid of the something in the Old Republic. That could be anything. That could be Zane Carrick. That could be the man. Just something in that period. Bob vetoed that. Bob vetoed the Bane.
Bob vetoed a fucking Bane trilogy?
Okay, so now you understand why my ire. The more you sit with it, the more we'll go on. We'll go on. These are the alleged.
Yeah.
Bob turned season 4 of Mando and Grogu into the movie Mando and Grogu.
Ew.
And Bob is responsible. And this to me is the greatest and biggest sin, according to Josh's source, that the more I think, the more a lot of this does make sense. Kathy wanted Rey and Luke to be the central stars of the trilogy, specifically Luke actually doing what we all wanted, teaching her and passing on the baton. And Bob said no. And if like, by virtue of that, you can blame Han, Luke, and Leia not being, even if Carrie had not died, Leia would not have been, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That is the accusations for Bob Iger. Now, Kathy is still responsible for all the other dumb shit we've listed. I am not saying she deserves any less. I'm only saying that Bob deserves a lot more.
Oh, to be fair, haven't we? I know for sure I have, and I think a lot of the other folks on this panel and in the sphere have always kind of equally blamed Bob, because at the end of the day, whatever bad decisions always fall on the boss.
I didn't.
And he's the ultimate boss.
I didn't. I thought Kathy.
Really?
This is where I want to get to. This is an Occam's razor thing where I had to convince myself of this weird fucking headcanon that George must have made an offhanded comment to her four decades ago or whatever about her coffee, and she just like Palpatine bided her time to get control and fuck him over and do all these things and say she's going to respect his legacy and do everything but and say his treatments were great, and it just didn't make sense to me. But what does make sense to me is Bob being an old who didn't like the prequels and just wanted to move on and do the Disney's. A lot of the shit we heard. Oh, Kathy said, no, we should be focusing on Disney, but apparently that was all Bob. Galaxy's Edge.
Bob never talked about Star Wars ever. So it's like it was rare that
So
whatever.
Bob,
yeah.
Right. I think that what I thought and what I always blame Bob on, like there's always those talks and those rumblings that Bob's whole goal was he wanted to be president, like the president of the United States. And so he wanted a political career. So how do you start your political career? You take your company the ideological route that everybody else is taking theirs, and you become the most subversive and inclusive company in America. And so basically all the stuff that's happening with Star Wars, don't get me wrong, super feminist Kathleen Kennedy was all on board with, but Bob also had a hand in because it would be good for his ideological bent for his upcoming
I thought she was wearing the pants in that fucking thing. I really did.
Really?
You hear Bob talk
Yeah,
way more about Kevin Feige and Marvel than you hear anything Lucasfilm Star Wars. That's just, and this is the other implication, that the reason you don't hear Bob talking about it is because then it would become clear exactly what he said yes and no to. And he's more than happy to let Kathy take the brunt of the hits so that when South Park does their Panderstone, they put Kathy in there. And who finds it at the end? Then it's Bob Iger. But those probably would have been switched.
There's something to the whole premise, though, like women wearing the pants or whatever. Who lets them wear the pants? Men. Aren't really letting them wear the pants and run the place, or are they controlled or on a leash of some sort? Like, I don't know. I personally don't think they trust the women to take the lead. It's just like virtue signaling, and they're like, "Oh, we're still pulling strings on the backside."
Yeah,
but she can take all of the public scrutiny. She can take all the things, but we're platforming a woman in charge. Like, it's a double. I don't know.
Yeah, she fucks up. You can just are we really surprised? Mm-hmm. And Dave is half of a F slur anyway, even if he's married. He is huge.
Well, Moxie's right. There's a lot of times you'll be in corporate and they'll have meetings like, we'd love to have a woman lead this. We'd love the optics of,
right. So like the whole, man, she's never going to live it down either. The force is female thing and the only reason because it wasn't her idea. She showed up to an event. They handed her a t-shirt. She wore it and she's never fucking lived it down. And she's never come out to say, of course the force isn't female. But yeah, that aside though, Dave is a huge male feminist, and they have hired all the female directors and the acolyte and all of that shit. Yeah, he's probably actually a full F slur. You're right. His dog, poor dog. So when I really think about it, a lot of it now, you can also call her a pussy because she didn't stand up for George. She curtailed just to keep her job, and that is apparently when you hear about the Lucasfilm Civil War. That is really just between Dave expressing of like, no, fuck this. Let's be Lucasfilm. And he's more apt to follow his version of what he thinks George's is because he talked to him.
Do you remember when George was on stage and doing the acceptance and he brought people up and then he says, and finally the last person, and Kathleen was standing there with her husband waiting to be called out, and he called the composer, I think John Williams. John Williams, and everyone like looked at her face and she was like pissed right off. Do you think that was like, you did this, you allowed Bob to fuck me over, and you should have you got in that position because of me, and now you're fucking my legacy.
You couldn't protect my legacy.
You couldn't protect my legacy.
Or they gave her the reins with stipulations, right? You could only do so much. She may have been super supportive in the beginning or before she took on that role, but taking on the role means you're restricted by this, that, whatever. Like,
well, Bob,
knowing
in his own
the
memoirs,
shenanigans that happen in corporate discussions and like terms of why you get to be in a certain position.
Fooled. George got fooled by Bob's own admission
in
his autobiography that when they purchased the script treatments along with Star Wars, it was like by default, because no one said opposite, he thought they were going to use his script treatments. And if you go along with this line of thinking, Kathy had every intention of using his script treatments, changing the Cara character to Rey and just having Luke being essential. And that's when Bob said, no.
That's what I'm saying. Like her position, when she was, put in the position, like, we're going to do this. It's going to look great for us. Check some boxes. But also, all those things you were like going to promise about like keeping loyal to George. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that.
And then instead of standing up or making a big stink, she just went along with it. So that's where I would,
because it may have been already in the paperwork.
I don't think
her getting the position.
It could be, and that would be even more of a betrayal, right? I don't know what her signing process was, but she was made president of
the hierarchy of decision making, right? Well, it still has to pass through certain checks. So while you have the title, you don't have the power.
Right, but again, she was made president of Lucasfilm before Disney took over, so she was Lucasfilm. She could have fought it. She could have.
See the contract.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, sorry, we got super chats here. Let me get to some of these while we all stew. Yeah, Gooch.
But that's interesting because like we're talking about mergers, right? So like when Disney buys it, so she's going to play ball no matter what. She doesn't want to lose her position. So
Gunn won't play ball.
Promotion's a promotion.
No, Gunn
won't play ball.
Gunn doesn't have a ball. Any balls.
Yeah, so that's where my blaming of Kathy would be in that signed, pre-agreed on, whatever the fuck. You openly said you would follow with George's legacy, and you didn't. And make
deals with the devil.